on, and I love the fact that you're in the Farm Bureau and you're young. What are you, 28?
Yep, just turned 28.
28 years old. 28 years old. So happy birthday.
Thank you.
Young farmer, and I think it's a lot to. I would say certainly a role model for younger farmers in the capacity of, because there's a lot of things that I know that you and I are learning day to day, even as farmers. But when you think about all the kids that I know, I think it's something for somebody to look up to. So I think you should be proud of yourself for what you're doing. And but why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're from, goals, aspirations, and then we'll just we'll dive into it.
So as you said, Drew Ross. I operate Ross Farms. We're predominantly a sheep farm. We raise about 150 head of heritage breed sheep in 84, Pennsylvania, mainly for their wool and lamb. My mother has a thriving wool business that sells not only yarn but also finished products like blankets, hats, mittens, and socks. And then the lamb side of things, we sell either direct to consumer or through our shop in Washington, Farmers and Friends Marketplace.
What's the address for that shop?
145 South Main.
So
right next to the community pavilions there in Washington, directly across the street from the Observer Reporter building.
Awesome. So if anybody is unfamiliar with downtown Washington, you have the big courthouse building. If you're looking at it from the front, and it would be to your left down, there's this huge pavilion. So there's some landmarks just to give you a little bit of a reference. But
yeah.
Good.
So there we sell anything you could think of. Fluid milk from a great Fayette County dairy at Harmony Acres. We sell cheese, beef, pork, lamb, goat, chicken, some great dairy products from Valewood Farms, which is actually up in Evansburg, like sour cream, chip dip. The best ice cream you've ever had comes from Valewood. But our main mission statement there at the store is sourcing from young farmers first, because I myself am a young farmer. Like I said, all of the lamb in the store comes from us, but then we also very carefully curate the rest of the grocery selection from young farmers first.
Well, that's pretty darn interesting. So most of the products are from Pennsylvania?
Almost all of them, yeah. Yeah, I would say almost. Yeah, they're all from Pennsylvania. Yeah, thinking about
Which
it.
I think I think that in its own regard is a testament to why I'm so passionate about not only farming but the outdoors. Because you go to some of the bigger businesses, I'll say without saying any names, but you go to some big businesses and it's China, Mexico, Taiwan, some of these other countries. So I think it's huge for local business owners to basically farm, create, process, package, and put back on the shelves. Because when you're trying to grow the economy, I know I've talked about this on past shows, it's about the whole circle. So it's literally, you got to be able to grow it or raise it or design it. You got to be able to process it, and you got to be able to package it. And that's something that I know later on in this show I want to talk a lot more about on a bigger scale. But what you're doing is exactly that. You're grabbing the bull by the horns, and I think that's huge. Now your farm is located in 84 PA, and anybody that drives by, if anybody knows where the blinking light is in Route 40 on Washington County, that's kind of a landmark. But your farm is beautiful. I can say it's definitely to drive down the road, and you could tell that you all put in a lot of hard work. Now, are you ever open? Like, do you allow tours? Do you give tours? Like, what all do you do? Like, as far as the public with your place?
We haven't in the past. Usually, the only time we would let I don't want to call them outsiders, but other people onto the farm is the one day a year that we would shear sheep, because that was a big educational thing. A lot of people have never seen a sheep be sheared. So that would be the one day. We are talking about it in the future. Agritourism is a very big, blooming industry here in Pennsylvania, and it's something that we've discussed. I'm not the greatest tour guide there because I see it every day, all day, and I don't think any of it is interesting anymore. But yeah, it's something we considered.
I can say from my own business with doing, the lodging, the Airbnbs, the Vribos, overnight stays, people coming hunting and fishing. People are looking for that opportunity to go and feed somebody's animals or go and pick some eggs. It seems small, but there's a lot of people that live in more urban areas that do not get to do that. They don't get to see it.
Yeah.
I know I walked into Daryl Becker's farm. He's the president of Fayette County Farm Bureau. And I kind of laughed because, I didn't realize I knew he had some cows, but I walk into his barn and there's, it reminded me, if anybody's ever read or saw the movie Charlotte's Web. And I walk into this barn and here's these big pigs, boars, and they have their literally they're all laying there, and there's all these little piglets, all the same exact size, and I'm just kind of wow. And then I go around the turn, and he's got some sheep, same thing, all these little sheep running around, little baby lambs running around. And then I think the thing that made me laugh the hardest was I come back around, and there's just this big mound of hay, and I see this little hole, and there's this chicken's head sticking out, and there's just all these little peeps running around, and I'm just man, this is literally somebody would love to have the opportunity to just walk in there and see that, because people do not get to see that every day. People don't. They just, the things that you have come accustomed to every day of your life. It just, for somebody that doesn't, I guess that it just hits. I guess it hits their hearts maybe a little more at times, or captivates their interest a little more. But I definitely know what you're saying, because there's days that I don't take the time to smell the roses, or even to sometimes see what's right there that maybe people would see as an opportunity. Because I know myself. I would love the opportunity to partner with more farmers myself and I know you and I have talked about this, even whether that's from the agritourism side of it or even the hunting aspects of it, because there's different farmers that do not utilize their lands 365 for every opportunity.
Yep.
And I think that's extremely important, that anytime that young farmers especially can find ways to work together, to build businesses, to promote that industry, because agriculture and tourism are 1 and 2 when you look at the state's economy.
Yeah. So
it's very, very critical, that we find ways to maximize and capitalize on that. And I think, it's certainly something for us to discuss, but things that, potentially collaborating with the chambers, looking at ways that, to highlight when somebody comes. Because in other countries, I'll give you a little story. So I stayed in Costa Rica in December. And I found it to be very interesting, because their whole economy predominantly is tourism. So you get to the hotel and a little tour guide comes and picks you up. And you basically sign up for these day-long excursions. So literally, the one day I got picked up, and we were going to go to a coffee farm. So we go to this place, and it was a 2-hour drive. That's how far their relationships go whenever you're at a hotel. So they drive us to this coffee farm, and I was amazed. We were not at the farm. I was I'm looking around, it's this little, you could call it a pavilion or lean-to building. And they basically had this little mocked up process all set up of, this is how the coffee beans are done, this is how we cook them and roast them and blah, blah, blah. So we go through the whole thing, and it kind of it dawned on me. I'm I had a good time. I enjoyed this. It was nice to just drive around, to have somebody drive me so I could see the countryside. We left there, and we stopped at a mom and pop restaurant for lunch. And I'm talking, it was mom and pop. There was no big billboard on the road. It was, the guy was you got to try this food. We go there, delicious. And then we left there and we went to a wildlife sanctuary. And in Costa Rica, the government gives like subsidy. I don't know what you want to call it, a subsidy or a payment or a tax credit for basically landowners that create wildlife refuges for people to then come and do viewings. But this place just had like a walking trail, and you just basically walked around the property. The tour guide took you, and we saw sloths. We saw just different types of birds. We saw, you kind of name it. There was an array of animals and wildlife. But we did that, came back, and it dawned on me. I was like, holy smokes. I started thinking about like where we're at. I don't think even you or I don't have it all. You don't have it all. But I started thinking about like all the farms that are out there and farmers and the different products. I got to go to a pretty cool dairy farm in Fayette County. I'm not sure if it's the same one. I forget the name of it, so I apologize. But there's a big dairy farm I got to go to, and they had a little store, and they were showing about the milking process. So like there's a pit stop along the way. Your place is a pit stop along the way. Mm-hmm. Daryl Becker's farm is a pit stop along the way. So you start thinking about just the farmers alone that could give a little 1 hour tour of their place, and not only be a draw, but also the farmer making a little bit of extra money, doing some stuff like that. So I think those things are important. I think that when I saw that, I was just like, man, we could probably do that back home. Like this is totally, but they have the thing, and I'm sure you know this, is like sometimes our society gets caught up in the Costa Rican society. It's about like a happy life and about a community. Yeah. And I feel that maybe in some ways, sadly, that Main Street, I don't want to call it Main Street, but that small town thinking just isn't what it used to be in not only Pennsylvania, but I think even in this country. Not to say that there aren't a lot of great communities out there that do still practice that, but I think that things like this, with us talking and people working together and exploring new ideas, different ways to generate revenue, I think it's fantastic. Now, what tell people, like explain people, you were saying about shearing the sheep. Like, what is the start to finished product from? How long does it take a newly born baby lamb, a sheep, a baby lamb, from the time of they're born to the time that they're sheared for their wool, and then that has to be turned into, like, the wool has to be processed, and then the processed wool goes to be turned into a final product to then go back onto your shelves. Yeah. So what is that entire cycle?
So you're going to get your first fleece off of a sheep at a year old. Because they're born in the spring. We shear once a year in spring. So they're born this year, we'll say. Next year, we'll get their first fleece off of them. The lamb fleece is not quite as good as a regular fleece would be off of an adult animal because they're spending a lot of their energy growing and not so much putting it into fleece production. So by 2 years, we have a really nice, good fleece off of a sheep. We'll then do what's called skirting it, which is removing any big vegetable matter, hay, straw, wood chips, sticks, whatever they've gotten into, out of the fleece. Then we'll package it up in wool bags.
So you're actually picking through it by hand to get it out of there?
The big stuff, at least. So we'll pack it in wool bags, those big, long. They used to be burlap, now they're plastic. We'll pack it up. Depending on what finished product it's destined for, whether it's going to be yarn that somebody could buy to crochet or knit with, or if it's going to be a finished product, it'll go off to one of two mills. All the yarn gets sent to the Blue Mountain Fiber Mill, which is just north of the city of Harrisburg. So that yarn becomes an entirely Pennsylvania product at that point, spun by a small fiber mill in Harrisburg. The finished product will go to a slightly bigger mill called Zeilinger's, which is in Michigan. They'll spin it into yarn, a more industrial quantity of yarn, if you will. Then they are able to make us our hats, our mittens, are socks, and soon wool insulation for housing, as well as mattress pads and wool-filled pillows. So those are our products that are in development right now because
Wool insulation for housing. That's interesting.
it's naturally fire retardant, and it's
Really?
more sustainable than fiberglass insulation. And it comes in both a rollout and a spray.
You just blew my mind there a little bit. So it's fire retardant.
Wool is naturally fire retardant. That's why a lot of fire blankets are wool blankets.
I did not know that. So, wow, that is fascinating. Wow, I'm like, so, wow. So when they take the wool with that capacity, when you say about blowing it, like, are they making like little pellets? What are they doing?
Yeah, they have a pelletizer that makes it the same as a fiberglass would come. Runs through the exact same machines, no need to modify them, and you just spray it in just like fiberglass.
Huh. Now, are those companies in Pennsylvania that process that? They're not in Pennsylvania.
Actually, I take that back. Blue Mountain in Harrisburg are the ones that are going to make the pelletized insulation. All the other, the mattress pads, the pillows, and the rollout will come from Michigan.
That is absolutely fascinating. I did not know that. Huh.
It's a pretty new idea because so when we look at our business has outgrown our own production. Mm-hmm. So we buy a lot of lambs and wool from other Washington County, Fayette County farmers.
Okay.
Unfortunately, because of the downturn in the wool industry, the quality of wool is not there anymore. It's not super high quality wool for the most part. Most people have shifted to breeding their sheep specifically for meat qualities instead of wool quality, which is understandable. Wool is, in a major farmer's eyes, wool right now is worthless. The biggest wool growers co-op in the United States that was one of the only ones that would still buy it, which was Mid-States. They just announced this year that this is their last year of business, and then they'll be out. So we had to be able to still support these farmers and help them make more money off of something that most of the farmers are just dumping over the hill.
Why is the wool, like, what makes wool, what changed? Was it like the diet of the animals? Like why was it not as good quality, or what changed?
Breeding. So the wool industry has been on the downturn since the 70s. Same thing with dairy industry. It kind of all failed together. So people started, you can get a generation a year. Gestation time on a sheep's only 5 months. So you could get 2 genetic changes in a year based on your breeding. So a lot of them bred for bigger, meatier sheep and not so much for the wool quality.
So they ended up with poor quality. Yeah. I understand.
So you can't use that for what we would call an on-skin product, hats, blankets, that kind of thing, yarns. But you can use it for things that don't really matter, like house insulation, mattress pads, wool-filled pillows, that kind of thing. So it's a way for us to still be able to buy their product this year without being worried about the quality.
Huh. Fascinating. Hi, Mark. Good to see you today.
Hey, Jason. Pleasure. What's up, Drew? Good to see you.
Man?
Mark here is owner and operator of President's Pub in Washington and also 19 North. I know, Mark, you've done a lot with trying to not only develop, the downtown of Washington, but doing a lot with something that hits with me is the outside. Like, you're not just an inside business. Exteriors of the buildings, events in town. There was just an event in town I want to talk about where we actually ran some sheep down Main Street, which Drew was directly involved with, and also farm to table. But tell everybody, the listeners out there, a little bit about yourself, what you do, and kind of like where you're headed as a business owner in Washington and beyond.
Sure. Yeah, I've been born and raised in Washington, PA, county seat, Washington County. About 13 years, I opened my first business on South Main Street. We opened a restaurant, coffee shop, bakery, and Italian market, 2010 through 15. And then we sold some of those businesses to move to North Main Street and open the President's Pub, which I currently operate, and 19 North, as you mentioned, our entertainment venue. So it's been the mission's been hometown restoration, but with that, like you said, it's not just an indoor business. Washington's not a thriving destination where you can just stay indoors. And a lot of the great resources we have are throughout the county. So it takes a networking effort to kind of tie those together, which is magnificent because we have a ton of great resources. But working together, me and Drew have been working for years together. So as a restaurateur, it's always been a big part of mine to the farm to table aspect. But it's not as easy as just buy from your local farm. And I think that's something that Drew's been spearheading and I've working with. A lot of small farms don't have the capability just to sell to restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
So
Or the people skills.
yeah, it's a different nature, and they've grown up on a reliance of taking their product quality well above the local your grocery store, but just to an auction, and you're not getting a very low return for the amount of work it takes to sustainably raise, and the heritage breeds, and just the quality of the local, how they're fed, and all of that. So it's been a work in collaboration with folks like Drew of how do we get small farm, local farms involved into the restaurant retail, and that's been something I've tried to work with to try to make more of a sustainable thing. So pioneering from our restaurants and supporting the local economy that way, but also just understanding like how the local farming works, how we can better partner is something that is an ongoing part of the process of using what we really have locally.
Do we have either a Washington County or a Pennsylvania label on food?
Yes, so there's what's called PA Preferred.
Okay.
It's from Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. Any farmer can sign up for it as long as they are a PA-based company, and all of the things that are happening, the processing, the whatever is going on to that product is happening in Pennsylvania. They give you a nice little sticker. They put you on their map, on their website, on their database. So, somebody Googles Pennsylvania product, it pops up on Google from...
I think about that because when I'm even thinking about food, maybe I just haven't paid attention a lot, but I can't remember seeing that on a menu.
It's an underutilized program for sure.
Next to things that, because I kind of envision, now that we're talking about this, I kind of would think even for us to establish, why not have like a sticker even for PA Farm Bureau that it came out of I understand we're talking about Pennsylvania with the Department of Ag, but I'm just thinking of it from a branding perspective. Maybe even like county stickers, or where did it come from? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like you were saying about you get stuff out of Fayette County. I'm sure people would be interested to know, especially when you're trying to buy local, like where's it actually coming from?
Yeah.
Just like to the fact about, I would love to know that. Like a lot of stuff that we go and buy, like we really don't know. Like to my point earlier, I was saying like, you either plant something, grow something, you have to then collect it and capture it or whatever you have to do. You then have to process it, and then you have to turn around and make it into a final product. For you, Mark, I mean, the final product could be food on the table. So like your chefs are putting something together. That could be meat that was grown at Drew's farm, processed at a butcher that, Drew, you're saying that
Fayette County. Yeah.
That comes to Fayette County, which, Mark, is a big problem because we don't have, I see this to be a huge problem, is we do not have and this is a much bigger idea, but we don't have a collection point for farmers, basically like a co-op, that they could, like you, Drew, places that we could collectively take our goods, have them either slaughtered, butchered, bagged, whatever it may be, and then Mark have a destination that he could go to and know that he's getting a local product that he could then convert for consumption. We don't have, when I say this, I mean, whether that's a butchering facility, whether that's collection for like egg distribution, poultry, beef, pork, lamb, sheep, goats. So there's some people that eat obviously eat goat.
Number one protein consumed in the world.
Just it's
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and that was actually like on my to-do list to meet with Drew this week. And then you said we were going to be on invite us both to the show today. So I was invited to meet a local homestead and Teller, I believe. Is that it?
Are you talking about Karis?
No, not Karis. Another.
I know Karis. Karis is great.
She's wonderful. But another, she's going through the Ignite program, the business incubator, going from a CPA to a homestead. And she knows a restaurateur. She wanted to reach out, and again, they're small phases. And I said, well, ideally, from a restaurant, I said it's great to meet you because even as a restaurateur, I don't know who my local farms are, and we're talking 15 minutes away, Washington County. So if I don't know, then your average consumer that wishes they could buy local doesn't know how to do that. So that's the biggest gap is the farm and the consumer doesn't have a middleman, an entity to tie us together.
Totally agree.
So ideally what we'd want, it'd be great if we had, again, we probably had this conversation 5 years ago, me and Drew and myself, we need a public market. And he's doing great with what he's doing, but even bigger, like a year-round indoor farmers market, and we're bringing all the farms together in one spot. Now that's like way steps down the road. So a step back would be, so let's work backwards. At least if we had a co-op or a single drop point, where at least if we could order from multiple farms and then pick them up in one location. Now that's making it more convenient because going from farm to farm to buy your eggs here, 15 miles away, you're picking up maybe your local milk, and then you're going to find wild strawberries. You're taking a weekend to shop local goods, which is what keeps us from buying local as frequently as we.
Well,
Convenience is the name of the game.
I also think when it comes to this, I was talking earlier about the tourism side of this, because even if I wanted to come up and check your shop out, and I wanted to go have lunch at his restaurant, and I wanted to spend my money at businesses that I know that are more like obviously locally owned and operated, and also buy goods and services from local. I kind of, the more I'm involved in this with the different bureaus and associations and whatnot, they're really, I hate to say to create something new, but we kind of need like a coalition, or like to have some unity where people, because I mean, Drew, you know this, there's some farm people that are farmers that don't give a hoot about what we're talking about, and they're so stuck in their ways that they would probably mock and make fun of us, or say that we're just stupid, or that's a dumb idea, or whatever it may be. Same thing with you, Mark. Do you want to do anything in Washington? You're some, for whatever the reason, somebody could spout off or say. So I get it. Same thing with me. I mean, I've been mocked, made fun of, humiliated for saying that I thought the outdoors was a intricate part of not only the county, but our regional and beyond, not only economy, but also education and getting kids involved and tackling the opioid epidemic and just so many things. But with us not having those, like you have chambers that this doesn't get talked about, even like, I'm involved in a farm bureau. I think we could do a lot more to highlight what we're talking about. I just think that back to the whole small town America thing, it's just that we're not talking this way. I was giving a story earlier, Mark, about Costa Rica, about how their entire economy, in my opinion, predominantly is geared at, it's not about Main Street, but it's about the small business owners all collaborating together, whether that's going to tour a coffee bean farm, stopping at a mom and pop local restaurant, then going to somebody else's local business. It's all like very, very important, but we haven't done that. That hasn't been like when I got involved in a farm bureau, it was basically pigs, chickens, cows. Like that was kind of that was my perception, let alone whenever I got involved with it. But you can't develop and do things if you don't implement some not only good ideas, but I just feel like, especially here in Southwest PA, I don't know, we've been doing a lot of the same things and expecting a different result. And, you guys are doing successful things in your own regards and putting your stamp on it. And I think that's kind of how we've all connected in different paths in life. The distribution thing, back to the idea of a ideology of a distribution area, that is like so important because that is the hub, spoke, wheel of developing this whole agritourism ideology, because farms are dying. They're dying on the vine because there's nowhere. It's not like you can milk a cow nowadays and sell it to the local grocery store.
Yeah.
There are so many government regulations and health and safety standards that that's not going to happen. Same thing goes for butchering animals. I mean, it's got to be in USDA approved, state approved facilities. Then, Mark, you go and cook food, it's got to be in the same health and safety standards. So all of this stuff has helped to weed out, not always in a good way, but it's weeded out a ton of people that were small business owners.
Yeah.
And then you look at all that, now you have all this land that's sitting that could be doing something. And that's where I came up with the idea of, well, wait a minute. Even if they're not farming, there are still deer and there's still turkeys. And people will pay to come and hunt and shoot them, period, end of story. But in the same capacity, let's say that people necessarily aren't interested in that philosophy. If there was a distribution center that, if you had like a big, Tractor Supply is a really good example, because I forget the name of the grain that they have. There's a purple bag. If anybody goes, they'll see what I mean. But it's always got the ducks and chickens and turkey and everything's on these bags. But anyways, they do a co-op. Tractor Supply has its own co-op, and basically they have a parent company that goes out within a 100-mile radius and says, hey, we'll pay you to plant oats on your property. We'll pay you to plant corn on your property, whatever it may be. And then they pick it all, they take it to a bundling facility, and then they have the option or choice at that time that they could put it on a train, a barge, or a tractor trailer. And in the same token, they can mix it, bag it, and put it right back on the shelves at the local store. So if you go and look at what I'm talking about, if you would go to Tractor Supply and look on the labels, you'll see that stuff's not coming from Pennsylvania. So if we're talking just about the grains that, Drew, you need to feed the animals before it even gets to the point of being slaughtered and gets to the point of Mark buying it to then create a good meal for somebody, we haven't even began with the linkage of the wheel to make this all work. So we have to figure out a way, and it's a big idea, but it can be done. But there has to be some type of a riverfront, railroad, highway depot spot where people can take grains, hay, animals, have them butchered and processed, and then whether Mark wants to go down there and pick it up right there, or if it's then taken to the shelves at a local grocery store, that it could be done. But think about who's all involved in that. I mean, in a good way, whether it's local farmers.
I know Karis from Old Road Farm. She drives almost an hour out of Washington County to a drop spot. That's how in demand we need one centrally that our farms are actually have, just because the structure's there. So what Ignite agreed to do is develop, and I pitched the idea to them, to Max Miller. I said, if we at least had a website, again, we need a third party. The farms can't do this, the restaurateurs can't lead the way. But as a partnership with a college and a central, made for business development. There's something agriculture is something they've been wanting to get into, but haven't found the right angle. If they could at least host a website where local farms and agricultural partners, even tourism on your side as well, can for free put your link to your business and what it's about, and then take you directly where to purchase, sign up for a hunt, a kayaking tour, purchase your local eggs, any of those local things. But if you're a local county agricultural partner, if we just had one website to start where it for free highlighted to a lot of these places that barely even have a website, but if we highlighted all these individual entities, at least if we could find them in one spot and then create like an emailing list, say like now you have a restaurant portion. So say you're a small farm and you only have so much freezer space, and here comes the next harvest and you need to make room, and you could do a flash sale to every local restaurant to sign up on the list for free. Hey, I'm discounting 25% off, and now they're making these connections to all these restaurants. So from a restaurateur, I want to buy local, but sometimes it's tough because
I was going to
the price on margin, the price for Washington County, we can only charge so much, so we deal with margins
and
too.
it has to make sense for you.
For sure.
Yeah, a lot of farmers don't understand that either.
Yeah, so it's a real partnership, but we have no forum to network. So if at least we had a website, and they agreed to, I think there's a student from W&J that they reached out to that's actually going to build it. They're going to work on the funding, and our job is to, and that's Drew, why we need to sit down and put a list together of almost of a committee of people that would have a vested interest in tourism. Because like you said, farms are dying, but the land's still beautiful. So it's just more of helping people that are kind of stuck in the old century into a new way of turning revenue from their farm. So whether like they have overnight stays and Airbnb and all these, you can wake up in the middle of a farm and see a sunrise, and you can sell that experience.
Yep.
And we have all of that in Washington County. So again, I think it starts with public awareness and at least putting this all in one spot. So the people that need to talk and network to take from a kayak tour to a downtown restaurant, to a shoot, to a cigar, to an overnight stay, to a history walk, to the Whiskey Rebellion, to the things that make Washington unique and exciting. They're all great, but I think, like you said, like people maybe discredit what all Washington County has to offer. They think we really haven't been doing the same things. It's just everybody has a small voice, but really if we could come together and really showcase what we're doing to a greater scale, and that's where like a third-party entity needs to come in. So I think a collaboration with our local business incubator, Knew the Scene, plus the college can help develop these concepts. And I think tying us all together in a network is the first step. All these next steps, the central drop locations, like the brick and mortar of making this happen, comes once we start talking about it on a regular basis. So even you bringing us here today, realizing like this is a hole in the county. We have the resources, not the lack of resources. That would be a real problem.
There's a lot of great businesses out there that are definitely not, like, I'll give you a good example. Century Inn on Route 40. Awesome business. Great business. They're not doing the same things. Not only did they restore that place, but that place is beautiful. It's, when we've talked before about, Mark, about excursions, like to me, that's one of the spots. Like the history, the Route 40 corridor, obviously Washington's part of that. Obviously, Drew, you're right off of Route 40.
Do a lot of work with the National Road Heritage Corridor too.
So like that whole corridor in its own capacity, I think has immense potential, which that's something, Drew, we should talk about, is about that National Road corridor. But there's a lot of people doing good things, but there's I would say how do I want to say this? There's chinks in the chain. There's gaps in the getting those good people. We talked about this, Drew. There's so many people that hold power that want credit, or that want it to be like it's their idea. Instead of it, is this good for the county? Is it good for society? And a lot of the people that I think do good things kind of get blockaded, roadblocked, maybe pushed aside because it's somebody that might be, I don't know, long standing in certain arenas. If you guys kind of get the drift of what I'm saying, it's just kind of you kind of get a little bit ostracized at times. I think all of us have overcome a lot, personally and professionally, to continue to grow and to be a shining light despite any roadblocks. Because there's a lot of times, I can tell you just in my own career, I was like, what the heck am I doing? Like, why am I continuing to try to help an area and people that clearly do not want help? So it's like it's certainly a test of fortitude and somebody's heart and passion to do what they're doing. And I definitely think you guys are doing an amazing job. Please, if anybody has an opportunity, check out Ross Farms. And do you have a website?
Not yet. It's still under construction.
But they can stop and see you in Washington at your store.
Can,
and what is the address again?
145 South Main.
145 South Main. And if anybody wants to come to President's Pub, what is its address, Mark?
We are just 2 blocks up at 88 North Main.
Awesome. So Main Street, Washington, some great small businesses. Please check them out. In closing, I just want to thank you guys very much, and certainly we'll have more of these conversations if you guys are willing to, and there's a lot more to discuss. For anybody out there, next Friday, May the 19th, the Appalachian Pipeliners Association, which is a big association, is going to be hosting an event at the Mariana Outdoorsman Association, Wild Acres Farm, 1997 Morey Road, Clarksville, Pennsylvania, 15322. Again, that's Wild Acres Farm, 1997 Morey Road, Clarksville, Pennsylvania, 15322. Registration for that event will be 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., and then the actual fly fishing tournament will be from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. There's going to be music, drinks, great networking opportunities. Mark, I know that you're going to be there, and
yes,
Drew, I hope that you'll come even as a guest. It's a great way to support the energy industry. There's going to be the money that they're raising is going towards college educational programs for high schoolers going into college. They're doing a lot with conservation, bringing awareness to the great outdoors, and would love to see everybody there. It's their inaugural event, and hopefully we can make it a big success to be a tremendous networking event for the future. Anybody interested in joining the Mariana Outdoorsman Association, currently there's a 30% discount. Again, 30% discount. You can join today at MarianaOutdoors.com. Again, that's MarianaOutdoors.com. We would certainly love to see you. Got a lot of work going on right now, a lot of plantings, a lot of positivity. Flowers are getting planted. Flowers will be blooming soon. But please check us out again, MarianaOutdoors.com. Can't wait to see you guys again soon. Have a great day.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, guys.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. That's the Great Outdoors Show on WMBS. Right now we have sunny skies and 63 degrees outside of our WVU Medicine Uniontown Hospital Studios. CBS News on the way next on your local station, 590 AM and 101.1 FM, W266DB, WMBS Uniontown. Good morning.
Brad, it's good.
This is CBS News on the Hour.